It started as an ordinary camping trip, just me, a tent, and the quiet solace of the woods. I'd come to escape the noise of city life to find peace in the embrace of nature. The lake shimmered under the pale moonlight, its surface as still as glass. A perfect night, or so I thought. Sometime past midnight, as the embers of my fire flickered in the cool air, I heard it. A soft rustling, followed by the faint sound of squelching footsteps in the damp soil. At first, I thought it might be an animal, but then out of the darkness, a small figure emerged. A child. She stood just beyond the firelight, her tiny frame trembling in the cold. Her pajamas were soaked, clinging to her frail body. Her dark hair hung in wet strands over her face. I should have been concerned, maybe even afraid, but all I saw was a lost little girl. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "I can't find my mommy and daddy." Something about her voice sent a shiver down my spine. It was empty, hollow, like an echo from somewhere deep and forgotten. But the rational part of my mind dismissed my unease. A child alone in the woods was a far greater concern. I grabbed my flashlight and stood. "Where did you last see them?" She turned and pointed towards the lake, her hand trembling. "Over there." I hesitated. The lake was still, undisturbed, but the mist hovering over it made the darkness seem even thicker. Still, I couldn't leave her alone. "Okay, I'll help you." She took my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. As we walked, the night seemed to grow quieter. The usual hum of crickets faded. Even my footsteps felt muted against the damp ground. Something was wrong. Every instinct in my body screamed for me to turn back, but I couldn't abandon her. The girl suddenly stopped at the edge of the water. The lake stretched out before us, black and endless. "They're down there," she said. I frowned. "What do you mean?" Before I could react, the surface of the water rippled. Something moved beneath the lake. I barely had time to register the pale hands reaching up from below before they clamped around the child's ankles. She didn't scream, she didn't struggle. She simply stared at me with wide, hollow eyes as she was dragged beneath the surface. The water swallowed her whole, leaving only the ripples in her place. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. My flashlight flickered. The air felt thick, suffocating. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My mind reeled. Had I really just seen that? Had I imagined it? A whisper slithered through the trees. "Help me." I turned. The girl stood at the tree line, her pajamas still soaked, her eyes wide and pleading. "Please, I can't find my mommy and daddy." I ran. I didn't stop until I was back at my campsite, stuffing my belongings into my bag with shaking hands. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring into the darkness, waiting for morning. When the first light of dawn broke through the trees, I grabbed my keys and left. As I drove past the ranger station, I saw the morning news playing on a small television inside. A headline scrolled across the screen. "Family drowns in lake. Tragedy from 30 years ago still haunts locals." The screen flickered. A grainy black and white photo appeared, an old newspaper clipping of a drowned family. At the center of the photo stood a little girl, her dark hair hanging in wet strands over her face. I left and never looked back.